Hello everybody. We don't have a guest this week, so I'm just going to try and experiment with a little ramble by myself about something that's become a little bit more prevalent to me personally this week, and that is people accepting change and accepting different things. It's more prevalent to me this week because, as people may know, I am the UK distributor for a product called Perflex, which is essentially an epoxy grout, which is nothing new at all. What's different about it is that the way that it's applied, and it looks a little bit different to other types of grouts once it's cured and finished. So initially, I couldn't even get people to use the product when I was giving it away for free. This a couple of years ago. I was literally giving away toolkits and grout for free, and the vast majority of the reactions, I would say 90% of the reaction that I got when I stood in front of people and said, look at this, was that they'd never seen it before, it can't possibly work, that's not grout. Lots of reasons for not using it, and the only reason really was because they'd literally never seen it before, and there was a little bit of the unknown. It wasn't what they were used to. And I suppose that there's a little bit of fear involved. They didn't want to say, I don't know what that is, I don't know how to use that product. They would rather say, and have a knee-jerk reaction, that's rubbish, it can't possibly work, I could do it much better with the way that I've always done it. But gradually, month by month, the first 6 months, I would say I got 5 to 10 people to use the product. Few of those people loved it and started posting about it online, and this gradually made other people start looking at it. And these are the type of people, I think, who would probably be called early adopters with new technology and things like that. Because like myself, if I see something new and different, I'm always drawn to it. If somebody's doing something different or something looks totally different, my first reaction personally isn't usually, that won't work or that must be shit. My first reaction is usually to find out more about it and see what it's actually doing. I do understand that puts me in a minority. The majority of people, when they see something different, the first reaction is to reject it. And it's literally because it's not what they're used to. So, in most of my old positions for companies that I've worked for, I would always try and introduce a new process or a new system or a new way of doing something. And most of the time, the resistance to it would be large. So, for example, if I tried to introduce a new process, say something that I'd learned from working for an automotive company, who tried to be highly efficient, lots of processes, and I would try to bring that into the retail world, the resistance would be huge. And then I would eventually convince my boss to let me try it. And then obviously, with a lot of these things, they sometimes don't work. You're trying something new just to see if it will work or not. And a lot of the time they don't work, but that's how you find out. And that's fine, and that's actually great, because that's how you learn to do better things and better processes. So I would introduce this new process or new system or new product or whatever it may be, and then obviously it wouldn't immediately work. One of the reasons being because the majority of people who would have to work on it were against it from the very beginning. There would be some people with open minds and willing to try new things, but inevitably something wouldn't be quite right with it, or it wouldn't quite work immediately. And then obviously the backlash is then, see, we told you. And then obviously this guy's a fucking idiot. He's like, keeps introducing these things that don't work. But what you've done is you've planted a seed, and then it may not have initially worked, or it may have worked and it may just get accepted, but you don't tend to get the same level as reaction if something does work as if it doesn't. But even if it didn't work, you've planted a seed there that actually we can do things differently. You don't have to keep doing what you've always done, and then it might open the door for somebody else to come behind and make better what you tried and failed to do. And to be honest, that may be something that's happening with Perflex. So it's been 2.5 years of basically relentless market research, I would say. There's actually more customers now. It's gone from a point where people wouldn't use it at all. They wouldn't even touch it because it looks so different and it must be shit, to the point where some open-minded people started using it and started seeing the benefits of it, to the point now where there's an incredible increase in sales month on month that's actually impossible to predict and very, very difficult to forecast. So it's actually now a product that people have generally accepted. And the only reason I think people are against it now is literally just personal preference. It looks different, which is fine. It does look different. But even that, I think the look of it does look different. But it's not to say it's bad because of that. It just looks different. And different, as mentioned before, people don't like different. But gradually, it's growing in popularity. There's a few other examples that I can give to people. One of which was there was a post on Tyler's Community, which is a Facebook group, and it was of a device that I've seen people devise before, but not in such a professional way. So I've seen people make a device like this with pieces of wood, with trowels attached to them. And it's basically a device that you can feed tiles through to back butter the tile. So I saw somebody do it a while back with, like I say, with wood and a trowel, and I thought that's a really good idea. And it interested me to see, because I could imagine if you're working on a large area that actually it may speed up the process of back buttering your tiles and definitely be more consistent. So the person, I don't know the person that actually created the device, but it was posted in Tyler's Community on the 16th of November if people want to see it. And obviously the vast majority of the reaction to it was that this is ridiculous, it looks slow, it'll slow everything down, it can't possibly work. But the way I look at it is, people have devised something similar to this before, but not quite as professionally, and whoever's created this, it's been professionally made somewhere. So somebody's gone out of the way and invested in tooling and equipment specifically to make this device. So somebody somewhere can see the potential in this, and I can, to be honest. I don't know if they've perfected it or not, but the person using it obviously sees the benefits in it. And I can see how this could be really handy, especially if you're doing larger tiles on larger areas. I don't understand well, I do understand. It's like I've just said, people don't, they see it and react because it's different. That can't possibly be efficient, or that can't possibly work, or that looks shit. But I would ask people to take a look at the guy that posted it, and take a look at the company that's made it. Somebody somewhere thinks this could be beneficial. And also, like I said before, it may be the first version that they've made of it, and people will see the benefits of it, and the next version might be an improvement on it. But if the only feedback they ever get is that looks shit, that can't possibly work, they're never going to figure out what needs to be changed with it. And it may be that ultimately it doesn't work, and it's not as useful as doing it by hand or whatever. But no one will ever know unless they try. I've got a feeling that somebody will create something like this. I personally, if I'm honest, when I look at it, I'm like, yeah, it's... I don't know what needs adding to it or improving on it, but something's not quite perfect about it. But I don't expect something to be perfect. It's the first time I've ever seen someone professionally make a device like this. It's not going to be perfect, but it may actually save people time if they take the time to think about it and read about it. Like I say, Wednesday 16th of November, take a look, Talos community. Let me know what you think. There is another example that I saw recently that was in Tyler's community again, and it was posted on Friday the 11th of November. Now when I saw this, I kind of knew the product that the lady was using to fix these 60 by 120 tiles to the wall. So just to describe it, there's been a number of steel plates mechanically fixed to a wall, and then what they're doing is they're dot and dabbing epoxy adhesive to these plates, and then just placing the 60 by 120 tiles onto the dot and dabs and pushing it on. And it looks to me like she is adding a little dab of some other type of sealant or adhesive that I think probably grabs quicker and just gives the tile a chance while the epoxy cures. And then of course she's using leveling clips to level the tiles, and it looks very easy. So I looked at this and thought, that's interesting. But again, obviously the vast majority of the comments are that can't possibly be right and that's going to fail and all the rest of it. It's just another method, and I don't know how new it is, but it's new to me, and it's obviously new to a lot of people who are commenting. But it looks very interesting to me, and I would like to investigate it more, and I would urge people to investigate things like this more. And as I mentioned, she's using leveling clips on the tiles themselves, and lots of tilers, almost every single tiler that I ask about new products and new innovations will mention leveling clips, because the initial reaction to them was a backlash. They can't possibly work, or they will slow you down. A good tiler doesn't need these things. But it's not about being a good tiler. I think it's not. I don't even have to argue leveling clips at this stage. Everybody uses them. But they make all tiling better if it's easier and it makes your work better. It doesn't matter how good you are. I think another comment on a lot of these videos, because a lot of these new innovations are made in China. So a lot of the comments, a lot of the time, are, oh, it's Chinese, which I've never understood. And I've been, like, as I've mentioned before, I've worked for large companies for a number of years now, and lots of things are made in China, and you always get it's Chinese, which I don't understand. That China has been the manufacturer of the world for decades now. All the best things come from China. All the best factories are in China. Now, there's equally as good factories all over the world as well, but the best products or the top products are most of the time made in China. Now, because China is so big, I think a lot of the time they've got all the best places and all the best products, but they've also got just as high a percentage of bad products as other countries have got. But because it's so big, there are more of those products, and a lot of the time it's kind of driven by us, by the West, because we will want cheap products, and it could be toys, tools, clothing, whatever it may be. And China and other countries in the Far East, they'll do it. They'll do as requested, and they'll make you the cheap products, and they're dirt cheap. So the quality isn't going to be as good. We're asking for dirt cheap products, and they're doing exactly what we're asking them to do. But as I say, a lot of the absolute best products in the world come from that part of the world as well. I don't need to tell you what's actually made in China. So I think the resistance to a lot of these new products, new processes, it's literally because people do not like change in general. I speak to a lot of people that are very open-minded, but that's because of the product that I sell. It's attracted those type of people initially, but the majority of people will not like change. A good example is when Instagram changed their logo. I don't know when it was, but it was a while ago. People won't remember it now, but there was a huge backlash to it, and I read about it at the time, and the reason is they changed it too much. It wasn't actually that different, but they changed it too much. So there was a huge resistance to it. And it's something it's pretty normal actually. It's something that you see quite a lot. But then people tend to get used to whatever's changed, in this case the Instagram logo, and then forget about all the backlash. It's normal. It's normal to see the backlash. You see it quite a lot in a lot of things, but the Instagram logo is a good example, because in some people's eyes they kind of changed it too much. I think it went from looking a little bit like a camera to a very simple design, which actually I'm pretty sure that most companies and apps and things like that ended up having a similar, very simple design. As I mentioned, I'm quite open to different things, different ways of doing things, different looking things. I'm not sure why, but I understand that I'm not part of the majority in that respect. I think it may be down to disruption, why people don't like things changing, because it disrupts the norm, and then it means that maybe they have to make a bit of effort, whether it's effort in thinking or effort in actually doing something. And the initial effort to when something changes, there probably is more effort required to get your head around it. Or if we use the example of the back buttering contraption that somebody made, there is a little bit of effort involved in setup. So you would have to set that up, and that it would probably take a few minutes. That would seem like, this is slowing me down. I don't like it. It's making me do things that I never had to do before. So I think a lot of designers, they try to change things a little bit at a time, to let people absorb what they're doing a little bit at a time. The Instagram logo was a drastic example. It changed too fast, so it got the backlash. It wasn't introduced slowly. And even our own government and a lot of businesses now, which I believe is actually the same company. So there was a department set up in government called the Nudge Unit, and the purpose of it is to introduce lots and lots of tiny little changes to support policy or support changes or make things better for people. And I believe it's developed into working for other governments and other companies, which, because it's so successful, makes you wonder, are they working for other companies? What are they nudging people in the direction of? 'Cause I think if you read about them, they'll say we only really work on morally good causes, so we won't help a company sell lots and lots more products that contain sugar, for example. But what they do is they introduce tiny things that may not even be noticeable, and people don't have to think about too much, but all these tiny little steps in the end do have big results. And even this department, a lot of the things they try don't work, and they just say, okay, that didn't work, and they just move on. They don't make a big thing out of it, and I guess they don't get lots of backlash. I guess they did initially, but I bet they don't anymore because they're so successful. It's a big department, and it's driving a lot of our government's policies and people's behaviour changes. The increased number of people paying tax, for example, or they've helped countries where it was the norm to avoid tax altogether, and through little nudges, letters, text messages, signs, no real orders coming down from the top. They've helped these countries to reduce the tax avoidance and the mistrust of its own government. It's not really possible to use these nudge techniques if for example, you're introducing a new product that's totally different into the market. You're relying on good marketing and some customers with an open mind. You often get, and I get this, that it's not even sometimes people saying that won't work, we don't like that. Sometimes you actually get actual haters who will actively work against the product and try and persuade other people that this product must be shit, when sometimes when they haven't even used the product themselves, or they have used it and they never really wanted to get on with it, and then they can use that as an excuse to bash the product, basically. And I would class these people, that type of person, as very, very resistant to change, probably in most aspects of their life. We are creatures of habit, and I'm probably the same. We get used to routines, and then they become automatic. And then if somebody tries to jolt us out of that routine or change something too much, it becomes uncomfortable, and then people will resist it and say, well, who's this guy? Why are we doing this? We've never done this before. So you'll get companies trying to introduce change, and they may get some success, and it may not work the first time, and it may not work the second time. The danger is that it doesn't work, and then the leaders aren't strong enough to just persevere, and they kind of let everybody fall back into place to do what they were doing before. And this is when companies don't really progress, and then they become change avoiders. Maybe there's a fear involved. Maybe there's a fear of being known as, and this was me throughout most of my jobs, that's the person that did that thing that didn't work, or it got replaced with XYZ. It got replaced with XYZ because the first thing was there in the first place. The first change happened. Maybe it didn't work, maybe it did work, but it's either been replaced with something else or improved upon. But the changes happened, so that initial person who will get zero credit for it did affect that change. So you have to have thick skin if you're going to stick your head above the parapet, because people will shoot at you. And then even if your change works, as I said before, you're still going to always have people who remember the old way, and they make themselves an enemy for no particular reason. And some people maybe have a fear of losing face, because as soon as something doesn't work, they don't want to be that person. That they want to be the person involved in only successes, which, to be honest, it's an impossible thing to do. I think if you look at all the best companies and all the best leaders in the world, they'll all admit and I've seen some people now on various social medias, very successful people, they want to fail. They want to fail. They will say that lots of the things I do fail, and lots of the things I say are wrong, and that's exactly how I want it to be. Because I agree with them, because how will you ever know? If you're a person who can say everything I've ever done is a success, I won't believe you. I would just assume that you're not a truthful person and not being honest, and you maybe have avoided tricky situations for your whole career, and that might be what you're good at, just avoiding scenarios where you might be accused of being wrong about something. If I bring it back to new products, I would urge people to look at things with an eye of interest rather than in fear or in skepticism. I actually can't remember, but that when the iPhone came out, it wasn't. People might think back and say, oh, that must have been a big change. It wasn't. There was already touchscreen phones that have been around for years. But I remember because I had one. I had a Windows touchscreen phone, and the way you touch the screen on one of those was with a little stylus that came out to the side of the phone, and it was very similar to having Windows but on your screen on your phone, and it wasn't great, to be honest. But I loved it because I was like, look at this, it's got GPS, it's a touch screen, I can do Excel on my phone, and people were like, what the? And at the time, people still had flip phones with, even a colour screen at that point was probably new to them. So they were looking at my touchscreen phone and thinking, that looks like a ball ache. And to be honest, it wasn't great. But by the time the iPhone came out, what they'd done is they absolutely made everything user-friendly, perfected it, and it wasn't such a big thing for people to accept. And now obviously the only phones that do exist are touchscreens, apart from cheap throwaway old-style phones with buttons, which actually I think is kind of cool. But yeah, products in your working life, I would say embrace them, try them. It will be more work at first, which I know people may not have the time and think, oh, I'm just going to do it the old way because that'll be quicker and that's what I trust. But I would urge people to try things out. Try out that back buttering device. Take a look at some of the new ways of fixing tiles. Pretty sure everybody uses leveling clips now, but from what people tell me, people who've been around since the beginning, they were not accepted at first. They were actually, the vast majority of people rejected them. You see comments now and again, but I think that probably 1 to 5% of people now will say leveling clips aren't needed. So yeah, try things out. Don't mock people who may be trying something new, or they may have their own invention. Another one I saw recently was somebody invented a product, and it was basically a board to put on your bath, so you could stand on it. And I know a lot of people just use MDF or whatever they're using. I don't know, whatever you guys use. And it got backlash immediately, and I think it was the price of it, to be honest, because a lot of people saw the usefulness in the design because it rolled up. But you got to remember, this guy is it's a brand new invention. He's made it. Is a guy based in the UK. He may have had it prototyped in the UK. It cost a fortune. So the initial cost of something is going to look high, but I would imagine if enough people support him and he's able to mass produce it, guess where? In China, the price will come down. And then you all have a roll-up board that you can put in your van and stand on the bath with. So yeah, support people and embrace people. Don't reject new things. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And it'll either be scrapped or improved upon. But try not to let new things fizzle out before they even get going, because these things might actually make your life easier in the long run and improve work and look better for a customer, and actually ultimately maybe even make you more money. Of course, there is the threat that new things bring with them, and it's understandable, because there may be a new process or a new product, and it's a threat to either a person who's always done that job, or a brand or a company that sees this new product and it's not their new product, and they may see it as a threat. So then they use their influence and power by being part of the establishment to downplay this new product or badmouth this new product. I would just ask people to make their own minds up. If somebody's going out of the way to talk down about another company's or another person's product, or the way that another person does something, think about it. Why is this person bad mouthing or trash talking this other thing? Because they've got no reason to. It's nothing to do with them. It's because it presents a threat to them. And also, what you can do, and there's nothing stopping people from doing this, if you see a product from a company, get involved. If you think that there can be an improvement made, rather than getting involved on social media and joining in with the crowd, which can happen, and everybody piles in to say, "Oh yeah, this is shit. That can't possibly work. That'll never work. What we normally do is much better." Get in touch with the company, because I'm sure they would love to hear your feedback. I do it all the time. I've made lots of changes to the way that Perflex is used, the quality of some of the tools based on Tyler's feedback, the way that we advise to use the product based on Tyler's feedback. So get involved, get in touch with the company, help the company to get this new thing or this change accepted by supporting them on social media, which is the most important thing at the moment. Don't let people badmouth and trash talk things until they've found out for themselves, or you found out, and then you can give your opinion. Embrace it, as I said at the beginning. Embrace change. Support people. It may be slower at the beginning. It's like learning a new skill. It's slow at first, but once you've got it, it actually makes your life a hell of a lot easier. It actually might make you more money in the long run. So there we go. It's just a short one this week, I suppose. Just a little ramble of mine. As I say, I would urge people, accept change, support each other. Look at new things, look at new processes, look at new products. Don't automatically reject things. There's a lot of good things that could come from it. Cheers. Bye-bye. Help each other out.